Hey, Kevin here, top 100 financial advisor, two-time author, one-time bestseller, and we are here to talk about the stock market. Tonight, I want to do a very quick video on can you be over diversified? Can you diversify too much? So we'll discuss what is diversification, why it's important, and can you overdo it? So we're going to use a whiteboard to explain a little bit of this, but first, let's put it out there. What is diversification? Diversification is spreading out your investments, particularly in different types of stocks in different industries, so that regardless of what the economy does, you're usually in the right places. So, for example, most investing firms or philosophies identify 11 sectors. I'm not going to go into all 11, but for example, you have like your consumer goods. This could be like a Target or a Walmart. Then you've got your technology, your Google, Amazon, Microsoft, depending on how you want to put, depending on where you really want to put Amazon, because they can also be in that consumer category. You got your industrials. This could be some of the airline and travel stocks, and you kind of see how this goes. You get energy, all that kind of stuff. So the way that a lot of economists and investing professors have set this up and saying, look, if you spread your money out evenly, no matter what happens in the economy, you're going to be really, really solid. You're not going to be, making all the money in the world every single year, but also when the world crashes like it did last year, you're also not going to be at the bottom. So the purpose of diversification is kind of putting you in the middle and getting you what most would consider that, seven, I would say 7-8%, 7-8.5% return per year on average, which is very, very solid. That's what they are trying to do. So when you see a Tesla jumping up 400%, that's great if you have it, but really we're trying to get you in a place where you can really have solid investments and you can walk away and come back in 10 years and not be broke. That's the entire point of diversification. Now, diversification has, risk and rewards. The risk is you may not make, again, that Tesla type of money. You may not make the 30 or 40% that Google can make or an Amazon can make within a year. You're not going to see that type of stuff. The reward is that when things dip, when Tesla took a 25% dip, Bitcoin is going through it right now. The diversification piece says, look, you will not see, or in most cases, we're protecting you from taking those types of dips. So there's, again, that risk versus reward. I can risk more, have less stocks, be less diversified, and make more money. Okay. You always got to remember that you can beat the market. A lot of people say that you can't beat the market and it's really, really difficult and all this kind of stuff. That's not necessarily true. It's really not. Like, you could have put all your money in Google and beat the market the last, what, 15, 20 years. You could have did that. Now, would that have been the brightest thing for you to do? Probably not. Would that have been the safest thing for you to do? Probably not. So there's a difference between making the absolute most money, but also managing your risk. And the more you manage your risk, the less those returns are going to be. And again, it's always about that spectrum and that balance. So let's get to diversification, and we define what diversification was, but let's talk about whether you can be too diversified. The answer is yes. Now, generally, most papers and research will tell you that anywhere between like 20 to 30 stocks is enough to be diversified if you are holding individual companies. There's a problem with that when you start to go beyond that number, and this is for individuals. So how do you get around that? Let's pull up the whiteboard here and kind of break this stuff out so we can kind of take notes as we're talking. Now, I just added the black theme on here, so it looks like chalk, which is really cool because one, I just think it looks really cool. But also, when I was teaching, I only had a regular whiteboard. I never had chalk, which probably for the best. But it looks like I'm writing in chalk, which I think looks really nice. All right, so to be diversified, most consider, so how many stocks to own? How many stocks to own? To be considered diversified by most researchers is anywhere between 20 to 30. All right. So you pick what you think is your best 20, you pick what you think is your best 30, and these are the stocks you're going to roll with. Obviously, every year you're going to come back and tailor that. Or what is easier, and this is why I'm such an advocate for index funds, I'll do it this way. Go down. So you can get 20 or 30 stocks or an index fund. Index fund And this is something like, again, VOO. Now, again, the reason why I'm not putting all of them here is because for something like this, you really only need one. So this is the difference. So something like VOO is going to have about 500 stocks in it, and this represents a good chunk of the entire stock market. Now, for an individual, it starts to get really hard once you start to go around 40 stocks or more. The reason why that's the case is because, remember, and I would even say for the average investor, 20 stocks, anything beyond 20 stocks starts to get a little more difficult, because every stock that you invest in, you want to know that you understand the business. You want to be able to research, understand what they do, how they do it, what's good about them, what is expected of them, and whether or not you want to put your money in it. You also need to be not an expert, but you need to be aware of all the economic trends and history behind every single company. When it's time for you to sell a company, how do you know which one of the 20 or 30 to sell? If you got 50, this gets really, really difficult unless you got a team like Warren Buffett or some of these other very large investors. For example, we talked about like a Disney and travel stocks, right? So I already know, because I don't have 30 different stocks, right? A lot of times y'all throw companies at me and I know them because these are things I've researched or I've invested in now or in the past. But sometimes, there's always somebody will throw one out there and look, I'm not following that way. I didn't know about Crocs. It was up 100 and whatever percent, 3 digits, whatever it was last year, because I can only focus on the few companies that I have. So the risk there is you're going to miss out on some good companies from time to time. That's fine. I'd rather miss out on a good one every now and then for some solid companies now than have picked a bad one and lost a bunch of money. So, there's a cost and reward there too. But when it comes to selling, balancing what's going on with the company, what to expect with the companies, it gets really hard as one person to do once you hit that 25, 30 and beyond mark. The other thing that you want to be aware of is over diversification, in this sense, where you are putting more money into a stock that you may not actually want to do. So I'm going to show you an example of this. So I'm doing this one because I know these two funds have it in there. So for example, let's say that your goal is to have 5% of all of your money in Tesla. Okay, so goal is 5% in Tesla. All right, so, and this is 5% of all the money you have. So let's say that you have $100,000. Okay, so you want to be diversified. You want to own a bunch of stocks. You may have yourself an index fund. So you sit down and say, all right, look, I got $100,000. I could put up to $5,000 into Tesla. So you go, maybe you do this on Public, Fidelity, maybe you're in a Roth IRA somewhere. You say, all right, perfect. I'm gonna put $5,000 of my money in Tesla. Boom, I've got my 5%. This is gonna grow for me. But you also come back and say, look, I heard about ARK funds. There's an ARK Innovation Fund. I want to put some money in there too. So you say, of the money you got, let me do ARKK. And let's say you put 25% of your money there. 25%. ARKK is the ARK Investments Innovation Fund. It was really good last year. This year, we got to see. Okay, so you put your money there. Now, here's a catch. 10% of this fund is in Tesla. So that means instead of the 5,000 that you got here, you got 25,000. So you got another 2,500 in Tesla. Okay, that's something you need to be concerned about. But you also say, I want to be more diversified. So I've got my innovation fund. I also want to get me a robotics ETF, something that's investing in all types of different robotics. Let's get that. I think that's going to make me some money too. So you say, of the $100,000 you got, I want to put 10% there. And that symbol is ARKQ, if I'm not mistaken. But guess what? 10% of that is also in Tesla. So that gives you another $1,000 into Tesla. All right, so that gives you 5, 6, 7. That's $7,500 in Tesla total. Total Tesla. Now, here's the issue. You came into this and said that your risk tolerance for Tesla was just 5%. You only wanted to put $5,000 in Tesla, but you got $7,500 in Tesla. And I'm just double checking my math here. So yeah, you got 7,500 in Tesla. That's a little more than what you expected, and that's not including the rest of the money you may invest as well. So you've taken on more risk here, and the problem is these are just 3 investments. These are just 3. What if you continue to add more ETFs? Do you have the time to go into each of those ETFs and see how much in Tesla is here, how much is in Google is here, how much is Square or PayPal, and all these other areas? It starts to get really, really difficult once you start to go even further. And again, this is only 3. So let's say if you did VOO, let's say you got a good, well, I'm not gonna do the percentage. You can say you got VOO. Well, how much of that is here? Let's say you want a Walmart here or a Square. Now you got to go back and see, well, how much in Square is here? How much in Square is here? How much in Square is here? Am I overplaying my hand? When you're ready to sell, or if ARK Investments themselves say, look, we're going to sell a portion of our Tesla, are you keeping track of that? And are you able to know how much what your exposure to Tesla is? Again, gets real difficult because you don't necessarily control when Kathy Wood, who runs these ARK investment funds, when she sells Tesla, if she adds a new company to it, and how you recalibrate this entire thing. So it gets a whole lot more difficult. So how do I get around it? How do I make sure, to the best of my ability, to really limit what's going on in my portfolio and keep myself diversified, but also sane? Because this is a lot of math. If I have 5 or 10 ETFs and 20 different stocks, it's a lot of stuff to handle, and you can spread yourself too thin and not research the way you should, not rebalance the way you should. In some cases, cost yourself way more money than you should as well. So here's how I do it. Here's how I set up the majority of my portfolio. It's boring. I'll tell you that now. All right. So right now, a good chunk of it, we do the rule of 110, and I'm 31. I just use 30 because it's just a whole lot easier. So we do 110 minus 30. That gives me 80% in stocks. This is just a rule of thumb. It is not the most scientific way in the world. Again, rule of thumb. All right, so this is what my portfolio looks like. So let's say we've got a good chunk in stocks. So a lot of this is something like, let's just call this SPY. So the majority of my money is in index funds. Why is it index funds? I don't have the time I got 2 kids, we writing a book, we run a business, we here teaching y'all every day, I teach classes. Like, I do, as a financial advisor by trade, I do not have time to go through 30 different stocks and make sure that all those companies are good all the time. I put my majority of my money in index funds. You probably want to consider that too. So we got a good chunk in index funds. And then I save a little bit of sliver for individual stocks. So I'm just going to put I stocks. And I want to say, of the money I have, and this is not gospel, so there are people who are going to disagree. That's fine. I'm going to say it's close to, let's call this 55%. Okay. So let's call this 30%. So this will be a little off here. So that gives us, what, 75%? We can call this 20%. That's going to be too much, ain't it? 15. There we go. And this is bonds. All right, so for bonds, I got something like BND. We call it a day. We're not concerned about that at all. Okay, so we got our BND there. Then we got our individual stocks. And my individual stocks, this is where I have that 5% rule, which gives me, what, 6 stocks? So, you know, on average, we're talking like maybe a Square, Amazon, Danaher that I have now. And I'm making these up. And you can go on public and see some of these other ones too. I didn't say Google. And 1, 2, 3, 4. I need 2 more. Let's do T-Mobile because I know I have that. And let's do O'Reilly, O-R-L-Y. So my public portfolio, I do have a lot more, but these are like really small amounts. So of the 30%, we got 5% each of these because we follow that 5% rule. And the objective here in my own portfolio is to make a little bit more, right? So if I'm gonna get what I get out of the SPY, if we can get a little bit more, I can boost my portfolio a touch. Some of this is going to be duplicated, but companies like Square, Amazon, Danaher, and Google have definitely beat the market over the long term. So it does help. This is why a lot of times I tend to beat the market. And that's not like a cocky statement. It's just, I mean, bro, if anybody invested in Google, you was probably going to beat the market, right? So I don't think it's a huge secret or a brag or anything like that. But then also when you factor in bonds, that can dip it. So it depends on how you want to cut the numbers. So this is really how it's set up. So for me, it limits if I go all the way up to 5%, which I don't have to, I can drop it down and have more stocks. So 5% per stock is my cap, it's my personal cap. I don't put more than 5%. So if I say, let's drop it down to 3, I get to add more stocks in here, right? But I'm capping the overall holdings at 30. So I can do 1%, and that's going to give me 30, which is too much for me, right? Or I can do 2%, give me like 15 or so. If I'm around, three stocks, that gets me about 10. If I have 3% in each of these, and that's what's going to kind of help me stay sane and organize my own portfolio, which is really close to what you see on public. So for me, I think I'm around in real life, I'm around at 3%. That's why they're like 10 or 11 stocks that I consistently invest in on public. I got some free ones that didn't really count in this situation. So that's how I keep it organized. So I'm investing heavily, keyword heavily, into 10 stocks for my long-term portfolio. I got other stuff that just, swing trading here or there. We're trying to make some extra money, but the long-term wealth portfolio, try to keep it to about 10 or so. Some of the ones you see on the screen, every 6 months we come back, we reevaluate and switch that out. The SPY stays and the bond fund stays, and that's how it's set up for me. Now, if I were to change this around, I have too many stocks. Again, it's very, very difficult to keep all that stuff in line and to make sure that you are doing all the things you need to do to be a good investor. All right, so before we close, I do want to show you this, since you have made it this far to the end of the video, and I am appreciative of you being here. So number one, go ahead, hit the like button and the share button, and I'm going to show you this. Y'all are some of the first people to see this, because I have not shared this on Instagram yet. I think it's only been on my personal Facebook, but it has not been on the Building Bread pages or the email list. And y'all know I love my email list. So they have not seen this yet either. So give me 1 second and show you this right here. All right, so the book is up on Instagram, on Amazon right now. We're working on getting a pre-order button. It will be available for everybody on May 18th. We're working on getting the I was going to say paperback, but the ebook as well. So that's going to be coming here pretty soon. You will see a pre-order button as soon as I can get that reworked and sent out. And you want to make sure that you sign up for the email list, buildingbread.com/1921, to learn more about when you can go and get this book. It is going to be really, really good. One of the best things that I have ever written, for a lot of different reasons, put a lot of time, a lot of research in it, and had a lot of help in terms of making sure that my best friend, Jaron Collins, designed the cover for that. I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma, so it means a lot to me, especially in this centennial year. So you want to make sure that you get it. I will be signing copies as well. So make sure that you are on that wait list so you can be one of the first people to get this book. You will love it. All right. So that's it for me. I'll talk to you guys later, and have a good weekend.